Today is June 4th, 2022, and I'm here with World War II veteran Dean Stickel. Dean, were you drafted or were you enlisted?
I were drafted.
And what year was that?
1945. I was drafted, but I applied for cadets programs. I wanted to be a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
But it was getting close to the end of the war, and I was in high school. I took one exam, and they said that when they would continue the program again, they would call me. But I was drafted before they said anything. They discontinued it and then started it up again for the Korean War.
Mm-hmm.
But I got my license under the GI Bill.
Were you sent for training anywhere?
Yeah, yes, I was sent to Camp Atterbury, Alabama. Not Atterbury, Camp Fort McClellan, Alabama. They were not anybody that was drafted at that time. You were a replacement group because all the armies was full,
Mm-hmm.
and most of them was Europe and Japan, Pacific, and they told us that when we went in that we would be in the invasion forces of Japan, and we would be a replacement group, but we wasn't trained for any certain thing. We were just general. And chances are, if you went to Japan invasion, you wouldn't make it. That was an encouraging. They was really put you real happy. There's a nice bunch of guys.
How long did you do training for?
Well, I had 6 months before, and then they gave me shots to go to the Pacific. I didn't say where, and then ended up sending me to Iceland instead of the Pacific. Why they sent me up there, I do not know. I was not trained for that anything up there. That was I was in the infantry, and they transferred me to the Army Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the United States Air Force. They had two the Army Air Force. Do you know about
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I was in, and they sent me to Iceland, and that wasn't an Army base. I don't know how they ever got to that, but then I got transferred to the Air Force, Army Air Force, and then I was put in the Ordnance Division of the Air Force, and we repaired things, mostly automobiles, trucks, and things like that, and then they had down on my service record as when I graduated from high school, I started in the body work.
Mm-hmm.
And I put that down that I had some experience as body work. And so they put me in what they called the shop manager of scheduling
Mm-hmm.
the work that was to be done for that on the whole island. And then they closed that division down and they sent me home. And I could have picked go back to the Army or go into the Army Air Force. So they sent me to Chanute Field, Illinois as a replacement group there. And then from there, they didn't really have nothing for you to do. They just moved you around. They sent me to Boca Raton, Florida, to a radar school, and I didn't even know how to turn a radar machine on, and more or less put in my time, and then when I was eligible to be discharged, I applied for it and got it.
Were you supposed to be assigned to any division in the infantry or no?
No, that was I was a replacement to be replaced at one of these places in a certain army, or
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the army was. That was in the Pacific. What number it was, I don't know.
Did you get seasick while going to Iceland?
No, I went over in a plane,
Oh, okay.
and what an experience. The plane should have been in the junkyard, but it was a four-motor plane, and we were forced down twice going to Iceland, once in Newfoundland and then in St. John's, and they were both Canadian bases, and we went on to Iceland from there. They fixed a plane overnight, and by the time we got to Iceland, the other motors, well, the one kept going, but we kept altitude at we was high enough that we run the motor to death and got to Iceland on one.
Did you have any interesting experiences while you were in Iceland, or no?
No, nothing, because it was cold and snowy.
Was that the first time you ever felt that cold? How cold was there?
No, I was born and raised on a farm here in Indiana, and it got cold here, but they had strong winds up there in Iceland,
Mm-hmm.
and now I understand it's getting to be a tourist site, and I've seen pictures of the tourist attractions in the island, and it don't anything look familiar to me when I was up there, because all it was cold, dark, and volcanic ashes.
Mm-hmm. Have you been back to Iceland
No,
since
but
the
I'd
war?
like to go back. They have what they call they build on the north end of the island, which is frozen the year around.
Mm-hmm.
I understand, and they build an elaborate road around there and motel on the north side of the island. I'd like to go back and go to that, but I'll never make it.
Never know. You could win a trip there.
At 96 years old.
Have you been on the honor flight?
Yes, I have. Barney, the one that, the next to the last guy that
Mm-hmm.
from World War II was living. Him and I were selected from the post up here to go on it. And if anybody ever has a chance, go. You know all about it, do you?
Yeah, I've been to DC.
Oh, you been on the honor flight, or?
No, not the honor flight. I went there for a class trip 5 years ago. It was amazing. The only thing that bothered me was my feet because I had plantar fasciitis. That killed me.
Well, everybody that was on there was old,
Oh. Mm-hmm.
and they had wheelchairs. I have a book here that I will show to you. Maybe you've seen them already, of the flight and the trip and the pictures of people at the honor flight.
I've seen photos of it like on Facebook of them coming back and then going to DC.
Okay,
and
well,
trips.
I'll get it to you and show it to you. Remind me
Okay.
for you. It's colored book put up, and you're assigned a guardian.
Mm-hmm.
And I was with a middle-aged lady from Fort Wayne, and we had a very good time. And I'm in contact with her about once or twice a year by phone. Uh, Never met her since, or don't even know her about. All I know, she lives in Fort Wayne,
Mm-hmm.
and I talked to her,
Hmm.
and they doesn't take no pay or anything. You can't tip them or anything. So I bought her one of them books and sent it to her, and she was on it.
That's nice.
And they carry everything for you. You're issued a camera, film, and everything, and she took all the pictures. And Walmart's give you the cameras.
Mm-hmm.
They're them little disposable cameras, and they develop the pictures and everything for you. And they make a full day. The only thing they don't pay for is if you go down the night before and stay overnight, so you don't have to drive to Fort Wayne in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
They don't pay for that, but they do give you a military discount. A very nice motel right close to the bar field where we took off.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
And her Barney's chaperone was the lieutenant general's wife, commander of the base, his wife. And it was quite an interesting day. I'll show you that book before.
So how did you feel about the invasion of Japan? Did you think it was going to come, or?
I thought it was coming. They told us that your chances of making it was very slim. And they kept hammering that to you. You're about ready to commit suicide because didn't anybody,
yeah.
but
It said they would have lost, or the Americans would have lost 4 million people. Would have had 4 million casualties.
yes.
That is what it's been said.
They never said how many, but they said they would be the majority of the people because the Japanese weren't civilized. They were barbarians as far as the war was.
Where were you when the bombs were dropped?
I was, it was in Fort McClellan. We were just finishing up our last phase of training because they said that we probably would be dropped in, some of us would be dropped in by parachutes because we were practicing jumping off of scaffolding,
Mm-hmm.
jumping off a little high thing to begin with, a couple of feet, until it was 10, 12 feet high with a full field pack. We practiced, that was a lot, but we didn't do any parachute jumping. Oh, they said that you probably wouldn't make it anyway, so they shoved. They said, we'll shove you out the plane.
So if they shoved you out the plane and you didn't know what to do,
No.
You just...
We would have been in the invasion, and of course we would have been assigned to a group over in the Pacific,
Mm-hmm.
but it would have been just as a replacement. The other boys that was in the regular groups had a year's training or better.
So when did you come home from the war?
When?
Yes.
46.
October
of 46.
So you did a lot of work in Iceland till then, or
No, I spent part of the time in Iceland and rest of it in Boca Raton, Florida, doing nothing.
Where were you when Pearl Harbor happened?
High school.
How did you feel about it?
I never thought I'd be in the Army.
Did you have any mixed feelings about it, or you probably didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was at the time.
I knew where it was because history was kind of my cup of tea.
Yeah.
I liked history and things like went on in the world.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to come, but when, I don't know. I was how close it come of two of the fellows that was in my class in school were drafted before we were out of school. They were drafted in January of '44. Took to, I think it was Camp Atterbury, was an induction center. They were sworn in, sent home, and 10 days after the graduation was, they had to report for duty. And those two were both in combat. They're not living anymore, but the one was wounded and one made it.
Were you awarded any medals?
No. I wasn't even good enough to get a good conduct medal because I wasn't a gung-ho guy.
Very interesting story. Thank you for taking the time to do this. Have you talked about your service to anyone before or no?
No.
How does it feel talking about it for the first time?
Well,
It doesn't bother you?
bring back some memories that are not the greatest things in the world, but it's different. Being in the Army was different. It's somebody hollering at you all the time.